Going here.
Vanessa, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. How about you?
Much better, thank you.
Good deal.
I have my twin with me today. I hope you don't mind.
Yeah, that's all good. I was getting a kick out of that. That's pretty funny.
Yeah, I don't know how I did that, but
You could lay your head on the desk for a quick snooze and no one would ever notice.
you'll never, yeah, exactly.
Okay, well,
There we go. That's better.
can you hear me okay, everybody?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
right. Well, I'd like to welcome you to our Public Works and Facility Subcommittee and we will.
Oh, yeah, it's Mike's still working on these subcommittee agendas, so look, if you go here.
It's only got the one item. Let's see, none of these other items. It's like, how do you- work? Are we ready? All right, well, thank you. I'd like to welcome you to our Public Works and Facility Subcommittee, Tuesday, September 27th, 2022. Call the meeting to order and let the record please show that our chair, Gus Walter, is with us by Zoom, as well as myself, the vice chair, Joe Paula, our city manager, David Kelly, and our assistant city manager, Kevin Thompson, and our interim city engineer, Vanessa Zapata. So minutes, get a chance to review the minutes? Everybody?
Yes, and I'd like to recommend we approve them as submitted.
Great, and I will second that. Any discussion, any concerns? Okay, the minutes will stand approved. Okay, move forward to public comment. This time, members of the public may comment on any matter not listed on this agenda. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. To make a public comment in person, okay, where there's nobody in the audience here, to make a public comment using Zoom, please raise your hand. And once we see that, we will call on you when appropriate. Michael, is there anybody by Zoom?
Thank you, Vice Chair Paula. No one is attending via Zoom right now.
Okay, so we'll move on then to communications. Any communications?
No communication, Vice Chair.
Okay, thank you. Okay, well, down to item 6.1 under new business, city trash receptacles in front of Dalian Stage.
And Vice Chair, I think this request was agendized at the request of the Vice Mayor Walter. Gus, I don't know, did you have a conversation with the representatives for Dalian Stage regarding this item?
Yes, thank you, David. Actually, I was in touch with the landlord, Randy Hatcher,
Okay.
and he's requesting that we put a trash can and a recycle in front of the facility somewhere along the sidewalk. The tenants at Dalian Stage will be more than happy to take care of the cleanup and the trash removal of those 2 units. I noticed that quite a few of the units around town no longer have a lock on them. So the lids just lift off. So however you want to do it, if you want to give them a key or just pop the locks out, they're going to go ahead and take care of it. So that was the request. I don't see any reason why we couldn't put them there. So I'm just throwing it out there.
Very good. City manager, any comments on that?
Yeah, there's certainly nothing wrong with the request. I'll have to check to confirm whether we have a can available, both a waste can as well as a recycle can at our courtyard. I'm pretty sure we have a blue recycle can, much like we had placed at the Veterans Hall. We haven't considered those as part of the downtown the streetscape improvements, but if we do have one, we can definitely provide that and coordinate its placement. It's great to hear that the tenants would be willing to manage those cans. I think it would be nice to have that in front of them. So let me just confirm we have both a solid waste and recycle can? And if so, we'll coordinate. You guys, do you know, did Randy ask us to coordinate with him as the property owner or directly with Donnie and Sage? You're on mute, guys.
Randy just said if they can have them out front. I would personally, I would check with the tenants. They're the ones that are there with the day-to-day traffic, pedestrian flow. Randy just sits across the street, so they know best where they would like them.
Okay.
Great. Okay, so maybe we can get an update on that at our next meeting. Okay, great. Thank you. Anything else on that item? Great, well, thank you. So we'll move on to item 6.2, stop ahead advisory on asphalt at northbound, and it should be also southbound, Cloverdale Boulevard approaching North Street. And I asked that be put up there, and that one came up at our city school subcommittee meeting about people that aren't really seeing the stop sign at Jefferson School there, and they come through and they'll slow down but not necessarily stop, because as you come over that grade coming southbound, you come down and the signs, it doesn't pop out like in some areas where a sign pops out. And I suggested that we take a look at putting stop ahead on the asphalt like they have in various locations. That would alert a motorist coming over that there is a stop sign ahead. And I think that would take care of that. But there is some concern with a lot of students do cross at that intersection. So that's why I asked that this be put on there for discussion. Vanessa, did you happen to get an opportunity to look at that location?
I did. I've been up there looking at Clovercrest a few times, and truth be told, I accidentally ran that stop sign myself coming south into town. Anyways, it's not a bad idea. It's, extra striping to maintain. I do need to coordinate with the guys on purchasing some stop bars and stop markings. So we can certainly put this on the list to get a couple of those as well.
Yeah, if we could kind of maybe put that as a higher priority, because it is a school area and there are a lot of students and parents that do cross at that location. So, and it did come up at our school safety meeting. So, yeah, I'd like to just be kept abreast of that, keep it on the agenda just for updates. Okay, anything, Gus, are you okay with that?
Oh, I'm perfectly fine with it. I've sat there at the stop sign trying to pull onto Cloverdale Boulevard, and on 5 or 6 occasions over the year, I've seen people slam on their brakes to stop or just go right through the stop sign. I think it's definitely needed.
Thank you. Okay, great. Well, thank you. Anything else in city staff? No. Okay, great. We'll move on to item 6C, approximate infrastructure improvement costs, pedestrian and bicycle safety, Asti Road between Citrus Fair and First Street connecting to Cloverdale Boulevard. And I asked for that to be placed on the agenda because just to give a little background, I had a meeting with Senator Mike McGuire, and I did point out to him that we were in a position, because of mandates imposed by the state, to move forward with the project, that we don't have the infrastructure in place to safely serve the potential residents that are going to live there, including children coming and going to school and the different events in town. And that we would welcome some assistance from the state to work on putting in the proper infrastructure. So he did ask that I provide him information with some funding needs, and I committed that I would try to get that together. So that's why this is on the agenda, and I appreciate it. So, okay, with that, I'll turn it over to City Manager.
Okay, well, thank you, Vice Chair. And just prior to the meeting, we did send out an email that contained a preliminary cost estimate that was prepared by Vanessa Apodaca, our interim city engineer. Since sending it, Vanessa did make just a minor update reflecting some additional costs or unit cost items for electrical improvements to support, streetlights. And we'll make that update and get that to both the chair, vice chair. But including your packet is a preliminary streetscape improvement cost estimate. That just to give you an overview, does follow kind of the standard design for a preliminary engineering estimate for this type of a street segment. What's included in it is kind of an all-in cost if we were to put this item out to bid, but it's really not designed for that per se, because we don't have detailed bid documents with specific project elements. But what this streetscape improvement cost estimate does provide for is sidewalk curb and gutter along the western side of Ospey Road between East First Street and Citrus Fair Drive. Streetlights along that entire section in accordance with the current standards for spacing. And in addition to that, and one of the things we've been working on is identifying some pathway improvements along the SMART corridor that kind of follows the SMART's master plan for a dedicated pathway along the corridor. So this cost estimate does include that, and we do think would be really ideal to include that in any future design work, and to pursue that in coordination with SMART would be to have that separated class 1 facility, not concrete but asphalt, again separated by a fence from the rail. Not really, because we don't know today what the plans for that rail are. But likewise, some additional improvements in terms of ramps, street improvements, striping, and then you've got the rail crossing as well that comes out of where kind of the exit to All Coast and New Forest is. That would require a little bit of special treatment. But so this is a real high level cost estimate. In the packet, it's the cost, so that's why you see a 25% contingency. I think it's reflecting, again, we don't have a design, so there is a lot of uncertainty. But really kind of round numbers, we're talking about $3 million. What this doesn't include is, any special pedestrian crossing, that we, again, as part of a master plan or planning process, we might identify, or any kinds of other types of traffic improvements. For instance, one thought is either or both of the two intersections at the north and south end of this segment would be, could be ideal for potentially a traffic circle. Those are, but again, this doesn't include that, so that'd be something that, again, master planning process we can look at what the design would be and ultimately what the cost would be. But I think for the purposes that the senator is asking, Vice Chair, I think this would kind of give a pretty good number, and certainly gives us something to target in terms of potential grant applications as well. So consider it a kind of a preliminary number that would be modified and updated based on more detailed design work.
Sure.
Vanessa, anything you wanted to add?
No, that's it. If you wanted a roundabout, doing a roundabout, a traffic circle, that's a whole different can of worms. And so I really hesitated on including anything about that could go, we're talking between, 200 and 400K. And that not including any special design, right of way acquisition, environmental documentation, the whole thing. So anyways, traffic circles are a whole different beast.
Great. Well, thank you for that report. Any questions? Gus, anything?
No, Joe. 3 million kind of opened my eyes a little bit, but it is what it is. I'm really hoping that maybe between Senator McGuire, SMART, even the contractor kicking in some money, that we could shave this cost down a little bit. At some point, I'd like to see it down and dirty. What do we need? The sidewalk, parking spots, can any of this be eliminated? I understand while we have the streets up, we're probably going to want to do the drainage improvements, sewer improvements, et cetera. But I think we need to have a conversation on this down the road at some point. I'm sure SMART has plans to develop that section. And if they don't, maybe it's time they do. The county, I believe, David, I'm not sure if I'm speaking out of turn or not, having the option on that blue building, the warehouse, maybe they could kick in some money to improve that section in front of their rental. I know there's no obligation for them to do that, but they might just have extra money sitting around, who knows? But thank you for the report, Vanessa, very detailed. Thank you.
So thank you as well, Vanessa. I really appreciate it. What I would like before I send this information to his office, I'd like to get what this would encompass, what it would look like. I got the map, but you mentioned sidewalks from this point down to that point, crosswalk, lights. Where they be located strategically, or maybe a schematic, nothing fancy, nothing, but just where all these would fit and how it would look in the picture. Is that doable? Because that would make it clear looking at a picture that would fit with this pricing information of what this looks like. Because reading it, I'm not real clear how it fits with the safety issue.
Oh, Vanessa, I kind of defer to you. I know sometimes these engineering items are kind of hard to depict figuratively speaking when we do things like sign relocation, sewer improvements. Those are all kind of pieces that you address as part of a comprehensive project. But I think we could maybe using a mapping exhibit try to, it's scale and how you depict it on the graph. Maybe Vice Chair, maybe what we can try to do is give some narrative around this.
That would be anything that would make it look clearer as how that fits this project,
Okay.
because I'm trying to tie everything to the project.
Sure.
The impacts from the project and our responsibility as a community to try to make it safe for those, mostly the kids that are going in and out of town, going to school, sports events, and those types of things.
So I think that what we can do is add kind of a narrative component. So we can talk about, what this, when you look at this concept, what does it entail? It means providing an accessible path, a sidewalk between these sections, providing a
East
dedicated
side,
bike.
till you cross to the west side, so
Right.
lighting under the freeway, and what we're trying to do.
Mhm.
Nothing, I don't want to put a lot of time or money in, but just something that better articulates where we came up with this and what it would do.
Sure.
And then I would, like you say, it's going to be helpful when we apply for grants, but it's also going to be helpful because I plan to submit it both to Senator McGuire is expecting it, and then Assemblyman Wood is not, but he's going to get a copy as well with the request. So. And that would be helpful when we talk to SMART and we talk to the county as well. So,
Absolutely.
but again, Senator McGuire he obviously couldn't promise any funding, but he certainly promised he's going to do everything to help us identify some funding. So the clearer we can make it, I think, the better off we'll be. Anything else on this?
Yes, Joe, if I could please. I don't disagree with you that we have to tie this not only into the project that we're talking about, but that whole area. There's other parcels there where low to moderate income housing could be situated. So it's not only for this project, it's for the future of further development, particularly with his Great Trail, I guess it's called, up to Ukiah. He might be able to shake some money out of that to help with the program here as well. So, but I think we just need to pitch it. It's for future development of transient housing as well. So,
and I don't disagree. I think that's a great point. I do think, though, the more we can say the immediate need based on these houses that are going to go up, there are going to be people going to school into town. And that may happen as early as late next year. So we need to be positioned now to make that, you know, those improvements, at least from a safety standpoint. So, and again, I want to reemphasize, he's committed to do what he can, so. Great. Anything else? Well, thank you both. Thank you, everybody, for, and so David, when that's done, I'll get this stuff together. And
Yeah.
we'll get it out.
I think it's the next step, at least a kind of a narrative overview that can attach to the map exhibit and then this worksheet that gives you know, someone can read it and have maybe just
A little bit of picture of how it's going
Right,
to
right.
get.
without all the graphic tools, it'll be hard to really show it figuratively, but we can certainly, we'll come up with something.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you so much. Okay, nothing else. We'll move on. I don't see any hands, so we'll move on to item 6.4. Approximate infrastructure improvement costs for the pedestrian bridge over the creek when leaving Cherry Creek housing, traveling northbound on Cloverdale Boulevard. And I asked that that be put on as well. And I did bring that one up as well to the senator and made it clear that we really need to make it safe. So the youth coming out are going to be walking into town, a lot of them, and they're going to have to walk out and around that barrier onto the roadway or close to the roadway to get to the sidewalk. So again, he wanted to get a number on that.
And Vice Chair, on that, we just haven't had the opportunity to look at that particular project in detail, to come up with a cost estimate like we have for Osti, but we'll take a better look. One of the things that we when we started just the initial evaluation of the proposed pedestrian crossing there, you know, there's kind of a couple unique issues. One is obviously the pedestrian bridge that would land on private property, and that's something that to just be cognizant of when we apply for grants, because of the, you know, there's always that question about property control. So we have to, we have to negotiate that kind of upfront. But one of the things we were kind of we started to look at that road section there, and something we need to consult with Vanessa and maybe even W-Trans about is there a alternative treatment there that we could look at that may not require a bridge? Part of the issue with the bridge, if you get into private property, that's one thing, but there's also a large oak tree on the west side of the creek, and there's a fire hydrant right there. So it's got the extra elements that kind of make it a little more challenging. And so Kevin and I, we kind of looked at the right of way there, and can we design kind of a bowl out there that can, you know, uses some of that existing right of way without having to do a pedestrian crossing and requiring, you know, dealing with the fish and wildlife, or you know, having to negotiate with the property owner over property acquisition. And so that was kind of an area where we wanted to just ping that idea and see if there was some interest in that, because it may serve a couple purposes. One is we can avoid some of the constraints, which are going to drive up the cost, and we might be able to do this. We can probably get grant funding for it, or use traffic impact fees to do these improvements, and it might help to kind of neck down the road a little bit, because that's one of the approaches with some of these traffic improvements, is to try to, you know, narrow the road, the travel. You don't want to not the travel lane, but kind of bring in the road a little bit to help that visual for the driver and slowing down traffic. So we were kind of thinking around about that, and we hadn't engaged with a professional traffic safety engineer to see if that's a viable option, but just wanted to kind of pitch that idea and see if there might be interest, or if it's really, you know, kind of let's go with the bridge and that's it. Perspective, we just recognizing the constraints there, and well, this might be an option for us to pursue.
There's an 11-foot shoulder there, so there's a lot of room, and we were thinking, you know, it might be easier, like David said, cheaper and quicker to at least get something in place for We did kind of look at that when that project was getting improved or approved, and we tried to get the, you know, the nonprofit housing developer to do a bridge, but they didn't want to do it for the reasons kind of Dave was describing. So there may be an opportunity to do something that's, you know, acceptable and safe, that's, like I said, quicker and easier and cheaper.
Right. But we just hadn't, just from the time it was agendized, Joe, we hadn't fully analyzed.
Well, the reason I put it on there, I guess you weren't here at the meeting, you were out of town when we had all players here, and there is a considerable concern about safety, leaving that project. I just used the word bridge. Certainly, I'm not locked in on that. I think the key word is safety. And certainly, I think we need to keep cost in mind. So if there's a less expensive way and without going through the hoops
Yeah.
with fishing game and those, I'm all for it. I think it's really a matter of where the kids coming in and out of that conference, and there's a lot of them, they're going to be able to get onto the sidewalk without walking into the traffic to do that. So, I mean, Gus, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I agree. It's something that we definitely have to look at, and I'm amenable to, if we can't do a crossing and whatever else we can do. I do know 99% sure that Eric will be selling his property pretty soon. And I know he can be difficult to deal with for a number of reasons, but I don't know if that would make a difference or not, because I'm assuming, Kevin, we would need his permission to put that bridge onto his property there. So
We would, and that was part of our consideration too. We kind of know that he's, I don't know, not big fans of our stuff.
Just a quick question, follow-up. Do we know exactly where the line is, where his property versus public property?
We don't, that's a great question, Vice Chair, and I think, you know, maybe it's a way to just even to help inform the process would be to get a surveyor under contract to start doing kind of that preliminary survey work, just to identify where exactly are the property corners. And you know, some of those areas are, you know, tend to be areas that haven't been surveyed in a long time, so there's not a lot of data to go, well, we know this is here. So that might be something we could do, is see, Vanessa, is there, get a survey firm out, you know, whether it's a Brelgy and Race or Mo Engineering to just do the survey work on grades and elevations, and that will help inform, you know, whether you know, where the property corners are, and help inform what kind of options are available in terms of improvements.
If I'm remembering correctly, I believe BKF did the plans for the Cherry Creek Village.
Yeah, we have maps and stuff, so there's some pretty new, you know, some work that's been done that would help.
Yeah, BKF, I believe, has surveying staff. And so it's entirely possible that the Cherry Creek Village plans has some level of survey information already on there. And I believe that is the adjacent property. Anyways, you know, whether that crosses the creek or not, it remains to be seen. But I would start there. I would start with that team, and then go from there.
Great. And again, I just want to reiterate, I'm all for, if there's an alternative way that we can move expeditiously, because there are kids in there, they ride their bikes, they're in and out, and we really want to get in front of before there's a problem. So, anything else on this? Thank you so much. So,
Just for talking purposes here, I did a quick Google search. Federal Highway Administration estimates that pedestrian bridges range from 1 to 5 million per complete installation. Again, real ballpark, real loose numbers. I'd be kind of curious to see what the county's estimating for their pedestrian bridge north of town. You know, that could possibly also inform that as far as bridge numbers, but I like the idea of looking at other traffic calming and pedestrian safety improvements. It's a very wide area out there. You know, some nice divided, you know, medians, some separated curbs, that could be a good solution.
I was just use that word because of Porterfield Creek, when we put the pedestrian bridge over that creek, and it seemed like it was a pre-made bridge that just went in and staff was able to set that little guy, and it works perfect, and it seemed pretty easy, and I don't remember it being a $5 million price tag, so I don't know. But again, I guess there's all levels of pedestrian bridges. But again, just to reiterate, I think it's more of a safety issue, and that's the focus. So whatever you guys, decide that would meet that, I'm all for. So if we could keep this on the agenda, I'd just like to get an update next month, and hopefully we can get this. I worry because there's a lot of kids playing out there now on the property. So, okay, anything else? Before we move on, I see no attendees, so we can move right on through. Item 6.5, recyclable water feasibility study.
Okay, thank you, Vice Chair. I'll introduce this item, and then I'll turn it over to our interim city engineer, Vanessa Dockett. There in your packet is a proposal for engineering services related to this item. This, I think, was a direction that was provided by the Public Works Subcommittee in our previous meeting when we were talking about options for expanding the use of recycled water in the city, and also preparing our wastewater treatment plant for advanced treatment. And really an ideal way to kind of start that process is to really do a feasibility study and to look at options. And as such, I think that was really the genesis of this proposal, and also to provide assistance with a grant application that could help fund this effort. But with that said, I'll turn it over to Vanessa. You want to walk our subcommittee members, again, maybe just anything I missed on the overview, and then any details that you want to share about your proposal.
So I am scheming a little bit. I'm scheming here with some of our grant, our funding staff. We have right now, we're working on an application for a PG&E grant to essentially do a feasibility study like we're talking about. The PG&E grant will fund up to $100,000, if I'm remembering correctly. There is potential, if we can go after both grants, there's potential to use, so the grant that is specifically mentioned in this particular letter proposal, that has a 50% match requirement. In this grand scheming, there's a lot of hope and crossing fingers here, but it's possible that if we get both grants, the PG&E grant will provide the match funding for this Department of Water Resources grant. Now that still leaves, in theory, then that's about $200K. And so there's still a little bit of leftover in here. The letter proposal before you is for $215K. And so I'd like to direct your attention to table 1 in this letter proposal. Where is this? On page 7. There is task 4, which is a distribution system analysis. Now that could be something that goes away. We don't have a distribution system. We may not have a distribution system. That's purple pipe for all intents and purposes. That's a bunch of purple pipe cruising through the streets. That could be something set up kind of as a master planning level. Anyways, this particularly just, picking things off and trying to get into where the city may not have to expend funds on this study. Number 4 could be greatly reduced. And if we just talk about, per our previous meeting, a filling station at the treatment plant, for example, other ways to use this recycled water without a bunch of purple pipe in the ground. Doing this kind of high level master planning, it also paves the way for development to have to pay for purple pipe. And developers have to kind of put infrastructure in per a master plan. And so paving the way for that for future development, especially as we develop south of town, or even like you're talking about there on Asti Road, there could be some potential there. Anyways, this is set up in draft form. If you guys want to kick this around, give us some feedback, provide staff direction. this is just kind of what we're cooking on.
Yeah, well, thank you. Anything from staff before? Gus, do you have any questions or comments? Well,
No, Joe, I don't, not at this time. It's good that we're moving in this direction, but this will be talked about for quite a while, so.
well, I just a couple of comments. First of all, thank you for this report. I think we need to get in front of this. I really think it's something, but right in your opening statement, and I was aware of it, where the regional water board has notified the city that perhaps in the future, perhaps within 10 years, that they may require this particular. So, I mean, it's not, is it a nice thing to do? I think it's time to really get this moving. And there is a lot of grant funding out there that we should be trying to get this in place sooner than later so we can go after some of that funding. Because who knows, in 5 years or 8 years, if it becomes a mandate, there may be no grant funding available. And then we got to figure out how we're going to do it. And I know Hillsburg, they put a lot of it on the ratepayers, and that's what we're trying to avoid, I think. But I think it's also with the water issue, it's not going to get better anytime soon. In fact, it's going to get worse. So we really need to start getting in front of it. I do know we have, and I was looking at it, I did mention that today that in our the water impact fee account, we have some money in there to, if we have to put some money into a match, I think that would be an appropriate use because it's to reduce the impacts on our water system and water impact, and using wastewater, recycling that water, being able to use it reduces the impact on the fresh water. So my last check was over 800,000 in that fund. So, and I can't think of a better use if we have to, is to get this master plan in place through grant funding and taking maybe a piece of this for our match to get this all laid out, and then start looking for serious funding through grants to start implementing the master plan. So, I mean, I strongly support that we get in front of this. Most cities are Windsor, Hillsburg, Petaluma, Santa Rosa, Kaya. I mean, it's the thing that I just don't want to be put in the position that you have to do it. We're totally unprepared and we have no money and struggle. So.
I also want to add that on top of, the potential to use this recycled water as a commodity and kind of help with our overall water portfolio. On the front end, the city has for some time had a permit to discharge wastewater effluent to the Russian River. We don't do that. We can't do it because our level of treatment is not advanced enough. So with the advanced treatment, I think the city has been actively keeping this permit in place just in case we'll need it. It was easy to go after at the time. It's easy to keep kind of maintaining that on paperwork. But at some point being able to actually discharge into the river that could offset, future curtailment. When the water board comes and tells us you can't use any more than XYZ amount of water, we could come back and say, wait, we're adding this into the river again. And so that gets subtracted off of our use allotment, if you will. So that's another kind of approach to why this would be, beneficial. And that's certainly the song that we're singing in these grant applications.
Well, Vanessa, one of the other things that we had talked about, I believe was at the last subcommittee meeting, was with the demand on the city now to take in the 6 acres water district and South Cloverdale district. It's time for some of the state agencies to stop ponying up some money to keep our facilities up to speed with those new demands, as opposed to putting it on the back of our ratepayers. So that's another avenue we don't want to forget.
Very good. So what do we need? What's the next step on this?
I think would be really to bring this forward for council consideration and of a professional services agreement with Wexios to initiate this effort.
and to make application for the grant funding as well as part of that project.
Yeah, I think initially correct me if I'm wrong, Vanessa, but we're kind of proceeding with the grant piece right now under the city engineering contract.
Where,
Given the scope of this, we really want to keep it separate because, you know, the value of the services you provide, and this might not be all your effort in terms of staff time. This would be other specialized staff that would work on this specific scope. So
That's correct.
why we kept it separate.
that's correct. Right now, we're working on a PG&E grant application, which has a deadline of September 30th. There is no match required, but it's only $100,000. So separate to that, you know, this particular grant with this letter proposal would be a DWR grant application. That does have a match requirement, which would be this potentially this PG&E offset. The DWR grant also has a specific delivery timetable. And so if we can get these things to, you know, meet up well, we're going to have to deliver this thing in like 18 months. Anyways, and so, you know, there's a few moving pieces out there, but, you know, I'm kind of excited with the prospect. It feels doable. It feels right for the city. You know, and if you guys want to kind of negotiate any of these talking points that are in this proposal before we take that to city council for consideration, we can either talk about it now or give you guys some time to review this and get feedback.
Gus, anything?
Well, I think I'd like to take a little time to get some feedback together, unless you and staff are ready to move now.
I think the grant application, like she mentioned, is September 30th. And I think, you know, my feelings are we should go for the full project and then talk about reducing it if we don't get the funding. But I'm optimistic that we may get the funding and get a master plan that addresses it all. If I understood you right, even though all the components that are listed, after we don't necessarily need to do them all right away if we actually move forward. See, so that to have the master plan that identifies the whole project would be helpful for long-term use as we go after funding. But if funding is limited, we can piecemeal which pieces we want to implement. That'd be my thoughts.
And I also want to just clarify here, the PG&E grant that we're actively pursuing is due on the 30th. The DWR grant in this letter proposal is an open enrollment. There's no due date for that grant application. So there, Gus, you certainly do have time. I don't want to put any kind of time pressure on that. There's no due date for the grant in this letter proposal.
Yeah. So, yeah, but I'm comfortable moving it forward, Gus, if you are. If you want more time, we certainly can keep it on the agenda. My biggest concern is we're going to have a new council next year, and they're not going to have any background on any of these things, and we're going to start all over. And I think it's really that important that we get this thing moving. So.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay, good. So we'll go ahead and move it for a presentation for the full council at the upcoming meeting. Okay. Thank you so much again for all your work on all this. This is great. Okay, so we'll move on to the title, let's see, where we have title 22 engineering report.
6.6. Right. And this is likewise a proposal from West Yost for engineering services to provide or prepare a recycled water Title 22 engineering report. When we moved to have an advanced treatment plan, I think this is an absolute requirement. But I think part of this was triggered by the interest in the Public Works Subcommittee in what options we would have available under our current treatment regime to be able to utilize the treated wastewater. And in order to do that, what's laid out in this proposal is the scope to address the state requirements for being able to to be able to actually provide or utilize the secondary treated water, for other purposes. And so I don't know, Vanessa, if there's anything else you want to elaborate on. I think I captured the essence of your perspective on why you prepared this.
That's correct.
So I guess, Vice Chair, you raised kind of last time you're thinking, well, what are some of the concepts or plans that we might be able to look at with without going to advanced treatment, we might be using the water, and there are provisions within state law to use it for that purpose. It's just in order to do so, we have to do this engineering report and kind of lay out how we use that. So this isn't required. This is really more of a, do we want to pursue this given where we find ourselves today with our current treatment capacity, or not treatment capacity, treatment type, as a way to explore those other, the uses of that water, and make sure that we comply with the requirements that are necessary.
Thank you. Questions, Gus?
Well, the only question I have, I'm sorry, Joe, it took me a minute to unmute here. The only question on the other uses, for example, right now, Hector is using it to water the grass in other areas of the city. We're still okay with that without having any additional studies done. Am I correct on that?
It's different. Sorry, David, go ahead.
I think I was gonna answer just as you were. The water that we use for park irrigation is really different than this water. This is water that's treated at our plant, our wastewater treatment plant. The water that we're using for irrigation purposes is water from our water treatment plant. Okay. Different regulatory framework that under the state law for that water, for the water we use in our parks. As of right now, under state law, you could not use our secondary treated water from the treatment plant, wastewater treatment plant on our parks. But there are other uses that you can use it for.
Okay. Thank you.
So this study would explain, if I understand it right, what we can use the water for.
So and it would have been probably good forethought to have included if you go back in the Wayback Time Machine to last month. I supplied a memo that kind of gave an overview of what would be allowed uses for recycled wastewater at the secondary effluent level. And so just to kind of recap, I just pulled it up in front of me here. Cemeteries, freeway landscaping, ornamental nursery stock, let's see, non-food bearing trees, landscape impoundments, non-structural firefighting, as in wildfire, kind of grasslands firefighting, soil compaction, dust control. And so there are certainly uses that the city could, we could potentially, if the city's got some construction project and things are dusty and you need to wet the soil out there to keep the dust down, that's pretty easy. But before you can utilize the water, the wastewater, the recycled wastewater, you've got to have certain permitting requirements met. And it's this Title 22 permitting is what we'd be going after. Basically, to use the recycled wastewater, you have to go through some red tape. And the proposal in front of you is to get us navigated through that red tape.
So would a resident that had their own, say, a 20-gallon tank be able to go down, if we had it set up kind of the Windsor concept, then go down, fill the tank, go home and use it for their landscape?
Not with the secondary effluent, which is
Oh.
currently what we have. In the future, if we go to the advanced treatment and have tertiary effluent, then yes.
Yes, okay. All right, good.
So that's why I say this is really optional for us if the desire is for us to try to maximize utilization of our secondary treated water, find ways to do that. This is kind of the first course of action to meet the regulatory requirements, and what they'll do is they'll put a whole set of standards, testing, and other processes that we have to comply with to be able to implement a system to use it. Notification, signage, all of those kind of health and safety practices that would be put in place to ensure that we're complying with state requirements. The way I kind of look at it is this would be a kind of a stopgap in between where we are now and moving towards advanced treatment. So it's completely discretionary, optional. If the desire is that we really need to find a use for our existing secondary treated water.
Vanessa, do you know any other places that are doing this, or?
Using secondary effluent, I think, like you said earlier, all of our neighbors are at the advanced level. I'm not aware that anybody is still doing secondary effluent.
And what would the cost of that be? Is that the dollar amount that's in your report here?
Correct.
97?
Oh, let's see, let me pull that up here.
I'm not sure it's worth it. Yeah, I think I support the first step to get to move forward with the advance and to get that all laid out and to go after funding, because I think we would stand a fair chance of getting funding in the future to do that. And that would make this a mute issue, I would think, at that point. So I just think for that amount of money, I just assume focus on the first. That's my thoughts, Gus. What's your thoughts on it?
Well, if it becomes a policing matter that when we give the water to people, they come and get it, that we have to police them to make sure they're using it properly, that could be a nightmare unto itself. So,
Well, and this, for the secondary effluent, the Title 22 permit, if you will, that would only apply to city staff. It wouldn't be something that we could,
okay.
It wouldn't be a commodity. The secondary effluent wouldn't be a commodity. This would basically be, permitting for city staff to be able to utilize this water in very specific ways.
If we have another bad winter, how long do you think it would take to get this permit in place in case we do need something like this for next summer?
I would have to follow up on that and find out what an approximate timeline looks like. I would have to defer to my recycled water experts and see what is typically the turnaround time for the state to issue the Title 22 permit.
Well,
I can do that, though. I can certainly follow up and see what we're looking at.
Any other comments? Yeah, at this time, I'm not really for pursuing this. I think that I'd like to just focus on getting the advanced treatment plan in place. I don't see, at least initially, a lot of new benefits for the community. Unless the staff, you could come up with a plan that says if we had this, we could reduce by and do, magical things that would make more sense. But just to have the permit, I don't see a lot of use going in, and I don't think it's something that we need to move on, at least right now. So that's my thoughts, Gus. Anything else to add to that?
No, I have to agree with you, Joe. If we're going to spend the money, we may as well, spend it for what we really need long term.
Well, and it's going to be something, I guess, I'm thinking again down the road, it's going to be required. I mean, this isn't something that's going to go away. So we're trying to get in front of it and get it in place before they come out and require us to do it. And who knows where the money's gonna come from at that point. And as we know, nothing's getting cheaper. Each year, the costs keep rising. So if we can get this in place like our neighboring cities have, I think we're gonna be in front of it, a real problem in the future, so. Okay. is that-
And well, Joe, not that we could take a chance on this happening, but I can't believe that they're gonna come out and jump up and down on the desk demanding that we do this and not have it funded with some type of mechanism, some type of aid from the state or the federal government for that.
Well, you know, I wish I was as optimistic as you are, because I've seen the state mandate so many things and the money doesn't follow. So, I mean, we're dealing with Asti Road, if you recall, and that's a mandate and the money's not there yet, so.
But that's a big price tag, you know, for that tertiary. I mean, you're talking what, maybe 40 million? I mean, still a little different than 3 million. And
Well, it's a big difference, you're right, but we're looking at funding that may be available through grant funding through both federal and state, so that window's there, and I think if we can get the 40 million through grants, or at least the majority of it through grants, you know, the other jurisdictions, a lot of them have used ratepayer rate increases to fund those over time. So, I mean, if they come out and mandate it, I'm not sure they're gonna have a check for the money to put it in place. I wish they would, but actually it's required in the Constitution that they do fund those mandates, but as we know, that doesn't happen.
You were
Well,
back
thank
on
you.
mute.
Dialogue.
And I just want to say, thank you to Vanessa and her team for preparing this, when we do get to an advanced treatment system, we will have to prepare a Title 22 engineering report, so it will be required at that time. But obviously, the first step in that process is kind of, as we've identified, is to start with this recycled water feasibility study. So, not all is lost. It kind of gives us an idea of what it's going to cost once we do get a system to then have that system be permitted. So, and current dollars, obviously, when we get there, the cost will change, but we at least have a perspective on what that process looks like.
Perfect, excellent. Any other final comments? Great, well, thank you. Great dialogue, and thank you again for the reports. Okay, we'll move to the standing items only. So we'll go to item 1, update on park irrigation.
All right, well, Vice Chair, we have our park superintendent,
Hi, Hector.
tree guru here with us. I know he's been very busy at tuning up our irrigation systems, and I think have you turned off the irrigation system?
Yeah.
We got that little bit of I got that storm, but I don't know if you said to turn it back on, but if you want to get the subcommittee an update on your efforts.
Thanks, David. Yeah, Chair, Vice Mayor Walter, and Vice Chair Councilmember Paula. Yeah, like David touched on, the irrigation system is currently off. I went out there just before the meeting and walked through the larger parks just to kind of get an idea of the moisture content on the fields. And it's still pretty good. From the looks of it, it kind of looks like I'm going to have to turn it back on starting this next Monday. But either way, we were able to get 2 weeks out of this little system, which is great. 2 weeks of not irrigating for the whole city it's huge. It's a lot of units. So I'm happy. That was a little bit of a blessing, the rain that we received, but at the same time, all the weeds are going to start coming back up. So kind of pros and cons, but that definitely did help out for our sporting activities. We're not currently right now, we're not utilizing the water buggy for the same reason. If we turn back the irrigation starting next Monday, we'll get the water buggy again on service and start hauling some water. Normally we do it a day to 1 full day, and sometimes depending on weather, if it's really warm, like we experienced a couple weeks ago, we would have it out there 2 days a week. But so far it's looking great.
The parks do look really good, really good. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any questions? See nobody? Okay, we'll move on to items 7.2, an update on the city grant application submitted to the Department of Water Resources for the citywide drought relief water system updates.
Yeah, Chair and Vice Chair, I'm really pleased to report that as of yesterday, we have a fully executed grant agreement. We received it electronically for signature. I promptly signed and returned, and I was delighted that by the end of the day, all the signatures by the state had been obtained, and they provided a final copy of that agreement. So with that, the proverbial clock starts ticking. But now that we have an executed grant agreement, it's good because any work that you do prior to that isn't covered. So now we're at the point where we can start moving forward. The time that Vanessa spends on working on this is now reimbursable under the admin portion. So that's kind of good news. And we're also one of the big components of the project is are funded under this program is the water meter project. We're working diligently with under the PG&E program on the meter the implementation of the meter component. But really the news I just want to share is the agreement's been executed, so we'll be planning on strategizing how we're going to be moving these forward. Each of the projects within the funding agreement have very detailed tasks with schedules attached to them. So they're really kind of 4 separate projects that will be kind of moving forward. They're really kind of independently of one another, but under this one grant agreement.
That's fantastic news. Any questions or comments? So I have I know we have a timeline. And does that timeline start now that it's been executed till, what is it, 3 years we have to complete the project? Is it 3 years?
I believe it was 3 years to complete the project. We became eligible for reimbursement a couple of months ago, as soon as they determined that we were eligible. That kind of started the timeline for reimbursement. We've got the schedules kind of drafted already in that executed agreement. And so, we're just going to start kind of diligently prosecuting, pursuing the projects and getting them executed as best as possible.
No, I understand. And any concerns over any delays in getting equipment, such as the meters or the parts that we're going to need once we get ready to implement that part of the project?
Yeah, I think supply chain issues are kind of an ongoing struggle, in lots of different respects, all over the place, not just for infrastructure, all over the place. It's really hard to say when that stuff's going to loosen up a little bit, but we're going to do our best to get these things, get these projects out to bid, if you will. A couple of the aspects we're looking at doing design build, the SCADA improvements. The city's pretty familiar with ArcSign. They did a lot of the initial design work, and so potentially getting that as a design build. We can certainly inquire with them when we get underway about if they're experiencing any supply chain issues. I don't know if PG&E has expressed any concern with the AMI meters. I don't know. And for as far as the well projects, I don't know that we'll have too much issues there either.
Well, I know we'll keep good records, and if we need to try to justify an extension by no fault of our own, we need to have those documents well laid out. So
Sure.
I just worry about supply chain because it's a problem everywhere. So Okay, any other comments or concerns? No, okay, we'll move on to item 7.3. An update on the development of a citywide street striping plan, pavement management plan.
Yeah, so this item was approved, well, the council approved at their last meeting, the Trans to be the engineering of record for this project. And so really just where we're at is we're in the process of getting the agreement in place with Trans to
Great,
move forward with this work.
excellent, excellent. Any questions? If none, thank you, and look forward to that project starting. Okay, update on the grant program funding for the city park basketball courts.
Well,
You want to pick up?
we skipped over 4, but
Oh, I
we
think-
just
oh,
sort of
okay.
by or-
Well, yes, I'm sorry, let's go back and forth. That's really important.
Yeah,
I guess because I'm kind of up to date.
Brad might be on.
Update on the pickleball court installation at Ferber Park.
Hector, you want to give us an overview? Or you've been, Hector's been overseeing the day-to-day
He's the main man.
improvements on this project. I know you've been out there with the with now it's been completed, the initial grading and paving, and now you're on to the kind of the next 2 phases, which is the surfacing and the fencing.
Thank you, David. Yes, we completed the court, we paved the court, and then we moved on to fencing, and with Coggins fencing, as well as the court surface. Adams, I met with Adam Surface this morning to go over the layout of the court. We went ahead and called Brad Horrell while we were there, and we had Brad on speaker while we were laying out the court, just to make sure that Brad was on board of the layout of the court, the 2 courts side by side. And of course, Brad was working, but he did take the time to spend a few minutes with us to discuss the layout, and it sounded like we came up to an understanding. I also went back to the job site. That's the reason why I was a little late to the meeting, because Adam Servicing sent us some the color skewed, the 3 colors that we picked for the court, and on the email the colors look kind of they looked a little darker to me. So before he started laying out the court, I drove out there and I said, hey, before you do anything, let me just go check them out, because it doesn't look like the colors we picked. But once we got there, it made a lot more sense. That for some reason the email made them look a lot darker. So it's a work in progress. I think we should be fine as far as the deadline for the grand opening on October 22nd. We got a little bit of fencing to do, and Adam Surfacing is scheduled to come back tomorrow to keep working on the striping and laying out that rubber surfacing on top. So it's going really good.
And we're gonna meet with Brad on Thursday at 1 to go over his agenda there for just kind of the final signage and security. Or I saw the agenda.
Yes. Well, it's moving along, and I just want to again thank the whole city team. I mean, and Hector, you spearheading this. It's a true asset to the community. There are so many people in this city that are so excited about this pickleball. I mean, it is a big deal, and that's why, I'm so glad we're taking the time to dot the i's, make sure the key people that are using it really have the input and they're really happy about it. So it's a big deal, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
And Vice Chair, if I can, I just want to mention, and I know the subcommittee members are very well aware, but with the promotion of Hector from a lead park to park superintendent, it's really facilitated being able to accomplish projects like this. Under his previous role, which did a great job, his job description wasn't set up necessarily to do these types of level of management, but Hector stepped right in, and he's really hands-on, and he's managing this and these other projects that are on the agenda very well. So I just wanted to acknowledge the work that Hector's doing, and again, thank council for promoting Hector to this position of park superintendent.
Thank you.
it really helps us with our project delivery here, with these projects, because really, it probably would have meant hiring a project manager, at quite a cost to the city, and we're able to do that because Hector can manage it as this work as part of his, his new role for the city.
Thank you. Thank you, David.
And again, I just want to reiterate that the council, this does not go by unappreciated or unseen. You know, you continue to provide an outstanding service, and I just want to, on behalf of the council, thank you.
Thank you.
You and your team.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, anything else? We'll move on then to, we'll go to item 7.5, update on the per capita grant program funding for the city park basketball courts, another wonderful program there.
Yeah, just a quick update. It's currently out to bid, the closing date of October 11th. So hopefully we'll get some bids and, depending on weather, it could be done by, Thanksgiving, they're saying. It's gonna be great. 2 full-size basketball courts at Second Street, relocation of the storm drain and removal of the concrete, the current concrete, which is about, 2 feet thick, Hector?
Yes.
A lot of concrete. So, this would be a great amendment in the fence around it.
Fence around it.
We're gonna put the chase in for lights, but we're not gonna put lights in just under the idea that the park closes at dusk. And so, in the future, we could get lighting, but right now we're just gonna go with the current hours of the park as the operation for the basketball courts.
But the conduit will be there.
Conduit will be there.
That's the
We
key.
made sure that,
Yeah.
it's
That's fantastic.
another exciting one.
Any questions or comments? Yes.
Actually, not, this has to do with Second Street Park, but the scoreboard on the baseball field, Hector, do you know if that's out of service, or there was a problem with it? I'm not sure if it's been fixed or not. Well, who even does that?
Yeah, so the scoreboard was damaged, I guess. A baseball hit it and it broke the antenna and a couple of critical components to make the scoreboard operate. Right now we're working with the manufacturer of I deal with that stuff. So I'm working with the manufacturer to see if we can replace those components ourselves in-house, or do we need, or is it something that requires more of a technical and have to hire somebody to come out and replace those components for it? But we're looking into it right now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Seeing no more hands, we'll move on to item 7.6. Update on Porterfield Creek Open Space Phase 3 Vegetation Management Program.
Okay, the agreement for phase 3 project is on the council agenda for approval or consideration at tomorrow's council meeting. So hopefully the scope of work will be approved. It's a budgeted line item in our parks budget. It's really a continuation of the work that we started last year in collaboration with North Smith County Fire District. And this year, the real focus is on the area immediately north of kind of the main preserve trail. And I know this was an area that has been prioritized by both Hector and in consultation with the fire district. It's kind of the key area to target for additional vegetation management. Like the earlier phases, it would be coordinated directly with Fuels crew on timing, based in part on weather, in conditions, and just ensuring that it's done when there's a good amount of humidity and no immediate fire hazard, but also to do it in a way that gets it done before the next fire season. So that's real critical. It's the efforts again budgeted $30,000, and that's kind of how the program is designed, is around that budget. And it was nice that phase 2 was really funded by the district and through some of the grant funds they got. So we were able to accomplish additional work with their help. So this again just a continuation of the work we started last year and continue to make progress. And I think you can really see the difference up there and from the 2 phases. So again, we're ready to go. Contracts basically sitting ready to go. Assuming council approves as well. And it's on consent. So.
Any questions?
Just David, just so you guys know, we're hoping that we can get that project underway in November. I got to confirm with Fire Chief Marshall Tuberville, and we're planning on doing the same thing we did last year, where we send out letters and send emails and maybe a Nixle alert to let the community know. Once I get a confirmation on a date, we'll start advertising and sending out information to the community to make sure that they're aware of the vegetation management event up at Porterfield Creek.
Great. Well, thank you so much. Okay, move on to item 7.8, update on airport capital improvement project.
We submitted our 5-year CIP back in August, and we met our requirements for submission of our annual CIP, and it's basically a continuation of existing projects that we've identified out there. The next one being the drainage improvements for the area between the runway and the remainder of the airport, and doing the environmental work for that. The critical issue is just how we're going to discharge that drainage water. So we got to do some environmental work. Not really much to report there. We're just we're kind of just in a waiting game with the FAA and when they approve funding for the projects, which is usually just one per fiscal year.
And their fiscal year is October to. Is it the same as ours? Or is it-
I think it's October to September.
Yeah, the federal.
Right.
That's weird. Any questions or comments? Okay, great, thank you. Move on to item 7.9, which is an update on 6 acres mutual water company pre-annexation process.
Yeah, we received word that the independent project manager that was going to be hired and funded by the Prop 1 funds through the state has been executed. The project manager is a professional engineer. Her name is Marlene Demery. Marlene, I know she was reaching out to you guys about whether the Veterans Hall was available. I know she wants to do kind of a kickoff meeting with the residents, and she's also working with the South Cloverdale Mutual Water Company as well. But that process, they're still in the process of preparing the improvement plans for extension of water and sewer to that area, and that's all just kind of in the works. So it's we're kind of again just waiting to have the team complete that work, and once they do, we can bring it forward, share with council. It'll be an internal kind of plan check process, of course, just like any other project, to make sure that the plans developed meet our city standards. And at that point, I think is where they'll probably, I know they're really interested in actually submitting the paperwork to LAFCO for formal annexation. So it's all in process.
Great.
We do attend monthly meetings, but they're still occurring for both South Cloverdale and as well as 6 acres.
Great. Any questions or comments? Yes.
And yes, and the facility is available the week of November 14th. So we will be able to accommodate her. I'm just waiting for one of the fellows over at the Vets Hall to get back to me so that I can take a look at the calendar. Unfortunately, I can't access it from home or on my phone. So I need one of them to go in and check the dates just to make sure, but we'll be able to accommodate 40 people with no problem. So.
Great, that's great. Thank you. Okay, seeing nobody else, we'll move on to update on item 710, update on Rule 20A.
Vice Chair, we really don't have any updates in the final report to council, or report to the subcommittee on this item.
Seeing no questions, we'll move on to 711. Update on First Street Crocker Bridge Pedestrian Improvement Project.
Yeah, just a quick summary update. We were provided, I think, was it 65% level drawings, Vanessa? I can't remember the exact percentage completion, but we did provide a fairly comprehensive set of comments back to Sonoma County, and I know they've been addressing those comments as part of moving their as part of the completion of their improvement plans forward. The biggest focus really was on the treatment of the bridge, not so much on the existing bridge, but the pedestrian improvement as it relates to the access road to River Park, and making sure that it's designed in a way to safely provide for pedestrian movement and vehicle access. And so they were just in conversations around what the fencing would look like, signage, and kind of that whole access point. So I don't know if you've had any further discussions, Vanessa, on that you want to share.
Yeah, I think you're right, David. I think we were reviewing the 65% plans. I think that there was a little bit of a disconnect with county staff, and Cindy is the county staff that is really working on that. She didn't receive some of our comments. Hector commented separately, and I kind of compiled mine and Darren's comments together. Anyway, she was already at the 90% level when she collaborated with me. They gave a detailed kind of breakdown of what they could and could not accommodate. You know, they're willing to accommodate as much as they can. I think there were some limitations with like new signage. For example, we were asking for like a welcome to Cloverdale sign. That would not be covered in the grant. The grant funding is very specific. And so it was very kind of politely declined for some of these asks, but they were certainly willing to accommodate what they could within the limits of the grant. And there was discussion. It's open, you know, if in the future we want to come back in and put in a welcome to Cloverdale sign, they were very welcome to receiving that. And there is potential for that later on after the project is closed out with Caltrans.
Great, thank you. I believe, I'll say, was it the Kiwanis Club that put the most recent signs up that we have, the welcome to Cloverdale signs? Or was it the Rotary that funded it? One of the service clubs I know took that project on, so we might want to research that and reach out to them, because I know they did the ones that we replaced all the signs, and that was the service club that funded those. So can't remember which club it was, but I think they would take that on to add a fourth sign or new sign. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to the item 712, an update on broadband funding and CUPC upgrades.
Okay. Well, Kevin Thompson, Susie Holmes, and myself, we had a meeting with the Sonoma County CAO's office, who's leading up a countywide effort to expand broadband. And they really want to know what our key issues were in Cloverdale. And, you know, as part of that conversation, we shared with them, you know, what our key goals were. And it's you know, that we've been talking quite a bit about this in terms of ensuring, you know, our particularly our school children have access to broadband service, and low-income residents who may not be able to afford the bandwidth And then third, the importance of broadband for resiliency, noting that we lost internet service during the Tubbs complex as well as the Kincaid fires. And so we're coming up with a system that can is more resilient in those emergencies to ensure we have critical internet access. Really, the counties is part of their 5-year strategic plan, and what they're trying to do is a county-wide plan and really access the large, because there's a large sum of funding there, and I think it shows that they're really interested in working with us as a partner and other cities come up with a county-wide plan. It seems to make sense. I haven't seen what the outcome of that work is. They do have some consultants that specialize in broadband and the different strategies that you can employ to help. And they're kind of looking at a model where the kind of almost like maybe the most relevant concept would be a franchise agreement, where then you grant the right for certain companies to provide or improve access in certain areas. So it's almost like a proposal process guided by a governance board that would be established, maybe like one of our other regional boards where you have input from different council members kind of reflecting the needs of that community. So that's still what we expect is going to be a plan that comes out that will then be a draft. We'll have opportunity to review it. But so far, our meeting was early September, and we haven't seen what I know they were kind of doing their meetings with the other cities, so we haven't heard back from them yet on what are the timelines for next steps.
Good. Well, that's exciting. Any questions or comments?
No.
Gus? Right. Well, good. Thank you for that. We'll move down. Information reports. Anything?
No reports, Chair. Right here.
Yeah, item number 9. We have future agenda items. Anything?
Yeah, if I may, I believe at the last Public Works Subcommittee meeting, we talked about getting some signs for the parks, asking people to clean up after themselves, however we want to verbiage it to them. But I just wanted to keep an eye on the calendar, and if we could just remember that that's on the plate here.
And yeah, I'm not sure. I think we might have lost Hector. I'm not seeing where he is, but we did discuss. Oh, here he comes. We did discuss signage with Hector today. And Hector, if you want to provide Chair Walter with an update.
Sure. Thanks, David. So yeah, I do have a list of signs that we're getting ready to order at the 2nd Street City Park, Ferber Park, and Clark Park. And I think we're gonna probably install one too at Porterfield Creek. It's been I'm also working with Brad Horrell right now to create some signage for the pickleball courts, as far as like all the laws, the regulations, and playing times. And so once we confirm with Brad tomorrow, Thursday on our meeting, I'm going to go ahead and place the order through Healdsburg Signs.
Good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Excellent. Well, thank you for that. It's important. Okay. Anything else for future agenda items? No? Okay. So good to the order. Anything? Seeing none. So we're going to adjourn. I'm not going to be available on the 25th of October. That's our next scheduled meeting. So we can proceed with Councilmember Chair Walter if you're available, or we can go ahead and cancel and have a special meeting with a different date where that works best for everybody.
Okay, if it's okay with you, Joe, I'll chat with David and Kevin about that, and we'll see what's pressing to go on the agenda.
That's absolutely fine. So we'll adjourn to the next meeting, which will be to be determined.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.